Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome today to an unboxing review of a relatively recent release from Seiko. It's the SRPE 27K1, aka the PADI Monster. This is the first time that the Monster line of watches, and we're into the fourth generation of Monsters now, has ever had that PADI logo on the dial. The first time that there's been a PADI tie-in with a Monster. Now, I haven't just bought this one. This one was sent to me for peeling the stickers thereof from the ever generous Adam over in Melbourne, Blue Moose Racing on Instagram. I'll leave a link to his Insta in the description of the video. Do me a favour and give him a follow, please. Adam, I'm beginning to wonder if you're actually buying these watches for you or you're buying them for me. Either way, I'm not complaining. Now, I've looked at a couple of Monsters on the channel in the past, also on loan. I've never actually put my money into one of these watches. I've always found the styling to be a little bit too out there beyond my normal range. Having said that, this 4th gen Monster range is the least monsterish of all the Monsters. Does that mean that I would be tempted to pay some cash for one of these at some point in the future? Let's flip the camera and find out. The least monsterish of all the Monsters? What on earth are you gibbering on about today? Well, as I said, this is a 4th gen Monster, one of 4 distinct generations, eras of these watches that have been released over nearly a 20-year period. The first of them, the originals, was using the pretty basic by today's standards 7S26. The second one upgraded to the 4R, and it also changed the indexes. It gave it those distinctly triangular monster's teeth that gave this watch its name. The 3rd generation had arguably the best movement. They had the 6R movement. 4th gen were back to the 4R, and there have been plenty of brightly coloured offshoots and sub-series in between. There was even a Seiko 5 branded so-called baby Monster a couple of years ago. Now, as I said, this is the first time that there has been a PADI branded Monster. There have been Samurais, there have been Turtles and so on, but this is the first time those 4 letters have appeared on the dial of a Monster. Now that means 2 hang tags on this particular watch, Seiko and the Prospex X, and a second one featuring the PADI logo. So Professional Association of Diving Instructors, not the only company, but one of the biggest companies that teaches people how to dive and grants them all the various certifications required. Seiko is an official watch partner of PADI. A very appropriate brand tie-in, I guess, one that definitely has benefits for both companies. Okay then, let's peel off some stickers. 2 tags just mean it's going to take me twice as long to untangle them. Now, no dial protector today, unfortunately, but we do get the signature blue protecting sticker covering the signature Seiko wave on the case back. So that'll have to do us today. And there we have it. But you know what? I think the Monster has lost a bit of weight. I think it's about the only thing that has lost weight over the course of 2020. 41 mil in diameter. Now, the stated diameter dimension is 43, but that is only if you include that shroud. So one of the signature features of the Monster, apart from those outrageous looks relative to the rest of the Seiko range, is this semi-shrouded bezel here, but I'll talk about that a bit later on. So 41 or 43, depending on where you measure it from. 13 mil thick. Interestingly, today the bezel protrudes, protecting the Hardlex crystal on the dial. Being a Seiko though, they've kept the lug-to-lug compact at 48, and we have drilled lugs as well today. Great if you do want to swap it out for a rubber strap to pop over the sleeve of your wetsuit at the weekend. 20 mil lug width, and unsized it weighs in at 186 grams. Sized up for my 7-inch wrist, it weighs in a little bit less than that, 173 grams. That's still pretty chunky for a 41/43. Now, as with about 99% of the watches that I've looked at on the channel, this one is made of stainless steel. So 316L stainless steel case, crown, full stainless steel bracelet with solid links. Now, this is a pin and collar system. People complain about the pin and collar system. It's perhaps not the most intuitive thing in the world to work. It's not as easy as screw links or even push pins, but it's not too bad. We've got a double security fold over. It's only a press clasp though, but it does have a usable diver's extension. With the diver's extension to operate, you flick it down from the bottom, pop it over the top, and there we are. If you're not using a rubber strap, you can pop that over the arm of your wetsuit at the weekends. So one component of the watch that I cannot find out what material it is made of is the bezel. So if you have any more information in that regard, please leave me a comment down below. It's all metal and it's one piece, so there's no insert today. All those markings are etched into the bezel itself. It is concave, and as I said, the bezel actually protrudes, protecting that piece of hardlex crystal. Now, one controversial element is the extended cyclops over the day-date complication at the 3 o'clock. I looked at the Nemo turtle, an Asia-only turtle, God, I think it was about 2 years ago, and it had one of those rather unusual candy bar shaped cyclopses, a bit of a polarizer. The old monsters didn't have a cyclops at all. I don't think it looks awful. It's just a bit weird and something you certainly are going to have to get used to if you are keen on picking up one of these 4th gen monsters. So another signature of the Monster range, in addition to the extreme looks, is and always has been the semi-shrouded bezel. Now, unlike the tuna range where they use a separate component, an additional shroud that is screwed onto the case, the shrouding in this case is done by the case, if you see what I mean. The case extends halfway up the bezel at the 2 lug ends, so the north and the south of the watch, if you see what I mean, and also extends around to the 4 PM crown. So unguarded crown, but the case is protecting the bezel. So if you do want to rotate the bezel, it is a standard Seiko 120 click unidirectional rotating. Feels very nice as well. You're going to have to use it from the 2 and the 8. You're going to have to put your fingers here rather than traditionally as one would rotate a bezel across the middle of the watch. How much protection that gives the bezel is a bit of a moot point. Certainly not as much as you get from a tuna, but it's always been more of a visual thing, I think, with a Monster anyway. Yeah, and these slightly polarizing looks are also a bit of a Monster signature. Now, the PADI logo, the PADI colors are blue and red, so they've incorporated blue and red mostly in the bezel today. They've kept the dial black, and there's a kind of orangey red tone to the minute hand and to the second hand as well. Integrated chapter ring, integrating those kind of extreme indexes, not as extreme as the Mark II as noted, still got the distinct double sharp index at 12, large batons at the 6 and the 9, and smaller batons everywhere else, and as discussed, that prominent day-date complication with cyclops at the 3 o'clock. Seiko and the Prospex X just printed on, PADI automatic and divers 200 meters, so this one is properly ISO certified, as all of the Prospex range of Seiko divers are. We have an integrated chapter ring, so no chances of getting any misalignment here, thankfully. All looks pretty good. Perhaps it is mellowing a little bit in its old age though, the Monster. I tell you what hasn't mellowed, the lume hasn't mellowed. The Monster has always been very, very famous for its extreme lume. Interestingly, on this model, they've gone 2 tones, so it's obviously Lume Bright because this is a Seiko. They've gone for a more traditional tone of Lume Bright, the green on the minute hand and on the lume pip at 12. They've gone for a slightly different, slightly bluer tone of Lume Bright elsewhere. I'll crank up the speed, and as we approach the end of my 20-minute test period, this one is still glowing like a bit of a torch. Bracelet certainly looks and feels very similar to that found on previous gen Monsters, mixture of brushed and polished. Now, they're brushed and polished to look like a 3-link bracelet, however, it's just single link, so a bit of a cost-cutting exercise by Seiko, but at least they've made up for that by making it look like they weren't cutting costs. Now, interestingly enough, the bracelet flares out beyond the 20mm lugs, adding a bit of extra visual heft and chunk to the watch. And as discussed, it's the kind of standard Seiko clasp arrangement. You've seen this on a dozen other Seiko divers at the price, 4 levels of micro adjust, and nice and comfortable on wrist. Well, you saw me peel and reveal the case back for the first time. That is a close-up of the Seiko signature Great Wave style logo there. Special edition because it's a PADI, the Prospex X, and the usual spec sheet. Divers watch 200 meters, Seiko, screw-on stainless steel, and containing the 4R36 movement. I'm not even going to bother putting this in the time grapher today. It's a 24 dual hacking and hand winding auto. You'll get somewhere between -20 and +30 seconds per day. Usually they come in somewhere between 0 and 10. They're rugged, they're robust, they're reliable, they're quiet, and they're really all you need in a watch at this price. Now on wrist it has plenty of presence, that is for sure, but I think it wears very, very nicely and it's really nicely balanced. You know, Seiko know what they're doing. They've made plenty of watches over the last 100 or so years. Big numbers, and being the 4th gen Monster, they've had every opportunity to refine the way this watch looks and the way it wears. Only 13mm thick. Now that has certainly trimmed a little bit of girth since previous generations. Perhaps that additional chunky big links in the bracelet here, adding a bit of weight to the bracelet overall and helping it sit nicely on my 7-inch wrist. Now legibility, obviously a big part of the design of any Seiko diver and especially the Monster. Two-tone lume, as discussed, means you can pick out the minute hand easily underwater. The fact that it has a red surround means you can pick it out easily when you are above the water surface as well. Plenty of real estate on the dial for the indexes. It's a good size handset, very, very easy to get an at-a-glance read from this one. And that legibility continues when you get the watch into some natural light conditions. It's a really easy watch to read. I love how the back end of the hands, they have painted black so they appear to float above the black dial. It's an interesting look and again makes it super easy to read. On wrist it wears better than you might expect. Downturn from the lugs, drilled lugs if you want to swap them out as well, and the fact that it's only a 41, it's not really a 43. Moans and niggles. Well, you could probably write this list yourself if you have considered this or any other member of the Seiko dive watch family around the price. Unsigned crown, bit of a cost-cutting exercise, as is the rather cheap but rather usable press clasp to give it its due. Now Harlex Crystal, if this is a PADI edition and you are genuinely taking this one underwater on a regular basis, then the old argument that you're not going to shatter a piece of Harlex in the way that you would shatter sapphire if you wallop it off a rock, maybe that has some validity today. I think for most people though, who will be wearing this one as a desk diver 99% of the time, it's another cost-cutting exercise by Seiko. Then there's that Cyclops. I'm not sure how many people were requesting the addition of a Cyclops on the Monster range, especially when this one appears to be a little bit squint. It's got a bit of a gangster lean on. But one thing I'm not going to complain about today is the price. What is the price? Well, they're $500 on Amazon, but can be picked up readily for less than $400 on eBay. I reckon that's a pretty good deal for a PADI, which is always worth a bit more anyway, and a Monster, which, you know, arguably, because of the design, because of some of the extra elements, because of that interesting bezel, is probably worth a few quid more than the equivalent Samurai. So it may have lost a bit of beef and is calming down as it approaches 20, but it's still a bit too extreme for me. This Seiko Monster, I'll stick with the slightly more conservative old school looks of the turtle. I don't mind the Fotina one though that they released last year. Fotina on a Monster, whatever next. I like that look, but it's still just a bit too out there for me. So there you have it, the Seiko PADI Monster. If you're a PADI diver and if you're a fan of the Monster range, this must be like all of your Christmases coming at once. They've taken a long time to come though, because as I said, this watch has been around for 20 years or close to it by now. I'm still not convinced that there will be a Monster in my future. I don't really go for the extreme styling. I prefer the turtle and the samurai ranges, but that's okay. There are plenty of guys like Adam out there and like Joel, who loaned me the last couple of Monsters that I've reviewed, who love these things. Thanks for watching. I will see you in a future video.